started. Just want to make sure we're all set up. Okay, perfect. Message was sent. And I'm just going to do one more thing. I'm going to post this info on my Facebook page because I think there are a few folks that are having some struggles getting on the webinar on Zoom. So just bear with me. If you are on, I truly, truly appreciate you joining. All right, I sent that. Folks should be good. So hello. I didn't realize I wasn't sharing my camera. I wanted to make sure that I'm doing that. And if you're on right now, if you could just go ahead and, never mind, I can do it. Just want to make sure that I mute the line so everyone can hear, and then I'll go back during the Q&A at the end and I'll unmute. So welcome, thank you again for joining. As I shared, if you follow me on Instagram, I shared just a, ooh, I see that lipstick. Let me help myself out. I was sharing that this is definitely a first. So not necessarily a first in terms of doing webinars. This is kind of the standard work way of doing things, but in terms of just me sharing fully about my story and my career path. And so I hope that you will engage today as people are joining. I see some folks that are joining, so thank you all so much for your time this evening. And I'm just gonna hop right into it. So as I've shared, I want today to talk to you about just what my biggest career failure has been, and what how I've kind of thrived through some personal as well as professional challenges. And so I'm going to get right into it. Can I have someone just to let me know? I want to make sure that you can see my video and my slides. So if you'll just give me a thumbs up or let me know in the chat, I just want to make sure that you can see both. And then if you have any questions as we're going along, I'm going to do questions at the end. Thank you to those that sent in questions. Several of you that registered went ahead, you saw the prompt for questions. So I have those included. We'll talk through those. But if you have questions as we progress tonight, just go ahead and put them in the chat, and I will be sure to answer those. Alrighty, so I think that's it for all of the preliminaries. Let me just do one more thing. I'm still getting some questions about the link. So next time I'll have this all worked out.
No, I'm watching something on the phone now. Got something I'm watching on the phone. I'm talking to someone.
Okay. All right. Okay. So a little bit about me, and before I kind of do just more of a thorough introduction, I want to throw this question out here and just ask, has anyone, can you identify with this, kind of thinking through your own career? I definitely had a point where I felt like this, where I was just at a loss. And this is kind of what I remember feeling probably around 2015, of just really kind of being at a loss and not knowing what I'm doing in my career. And so if you can't see the slide, if you're called in on the line, it just says, you know, I'm at a loss right now. I don't know what I'm doing in my career. And particularly those of us who are millennials, I know you probably can identify with that, especially, you know, early in your career, or as you may be transitioning through different industries or to a different organization or job, just really feeling like, okay, I don't know which way to go. There are a lot of different directions I could take. And that feeling, particularly that feeling connected to a failure, is what I want to share with you today, some strategies really to get through that. And so a little about me. You can see on the slide, I have just 3 pictures just to briefly kind of give you an introduction. If you're on Zoom now, then you probably see the only other person that's sharing their video is my husband. So hello, honey. I wanted to start just by, you know, sharing that I am a wife, and I am going to talk about that some. I'm going to talk about that because I think as those of you who may be married or may have a significant other, recognize and understand, when you are in partnership, when you are in covenant with someone else, it has an impact on your career. It has an impact on the decisions that you make. It has an impact on what you're able to say yes to. And so I'm going to talk about that. I hope to be able to talk about that more as I progress. And then secondly, many of you probably came onto this WebEx and know me because you follow me on social media. And so a little over 2 years ago, I started an image consulting business, and it has been the source of a lot of growth in my life. And so I spend my time, my 9 to 5, if you will, as a brand manager for Pfizer. And so I'm going to talk to you about my professional career with Pfizer. I've been with Pfizer for 10.5 years now. And so I'm going to kind of give you some background and then kind of talk you through my failure and then give you the strategies, take some questions, and we'll get out of here. But in addition to that, with Style by Britt, I do leadership and executive presence, speaking and consulting. And so I absolutely love it. I started out strictly doing personal styling, and there were some questions about that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the Q&A, and just have progressed to where I am now, which I feel like is a really good fit in doing what I absolutely love doing. And then I speak. And so I was sharing on my Instagram stories today that, you know, this, like, you know, talking on your phone and you know, doing the lives and the story video is definitely something that I'm growing to do more of. I'm trying to really challenge myself. So I took like a baby step by sharing in the morning my work looks of the day, because I love fashion, and people, you know, women love fashion. Women are my target audience. And so I get my feet wet that way, and I'm trying to do more and more of it. So I truly, truly appreciate you joining me today as I look forward to sharing with you how we can thrive together. So about my career. So if you are seeing the slide right now, I want to just briefly kind of take you through my professional background and how I got to my failure and where I am now. So I was introduced to En-ROADS. I always start out talking about my career with En-ROADS because I wouldn't be at the company that I am in now if it wasn't for En-ROADS. And so I started with En-ROADS actually as a high school student. They used to have a pre-college program. I'm not sure if they have the pre-college program anymore, but I started. Pre-college program was a college prep program. From there, decided to accept a full scholarship to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and started studying. I studied political science and communications, and so I went to UT with the intention of graduating on a pre-law track and going into law school, and then enter in Pfizer. So in 2006. Due to En-ROADS, I was introduced to Pfizer and started interning with Pfizer. And so had 2 amazing summers interning with Pfizer, really, really learned a lot. I knew nothing about pharmaceutical sales until I had that opportunity. And when I graduated in 2008, after taking the LSAT, putting in an application to Vanderbilt, that was my top school of choice, I decided to accept a full offer to come into Pfizer. Now, initially in 2008, when I said yes to the full offer, I'll go to work for Pfizer, my initial thinking was that I have the opportunity. My slides are just moving and I don't know what's going on. So sorry, I keep clicking back and forth. But when I decided to accept the offer, so it was the fall semester of my senior year at UT, I said, okay, I will, accept the offer. It was a position working in Nashville. I'll save, and then, in 2 or 3 years, I'll go back to law school. So here it is, 2018. I don't have my JD yet. So I decided to stay with Pfizer. And in 2012, I decided to relocate and accept a promotion that took me to Chattanooga. So I spent about 4.5 years in several roles in Nashville. And then in 2012, October of 2012, I decided to relocate to Chattanooga. So I spent some time in Chattanooga working in leadership with Pfizer and doing some specialty type of pharmaceutical sales work, and really, really loved what I was doing, but was introduced to marketing at Pfizer probably in like 2010. So in between my transition from Nashville to Chattanooga, and I absolutely loved it. So I'll put a quick pause right here to say, if you have the opportunity within your organization to get exposure to a new area, whether that be through some type of short-term working, some type of job swapping, or even just job shadowing, which is what I did. So I had a marketer that came down to Tennessee and was doing some work with me, and we were just in the car just talking. Like, he was sharing about his career. It was this guy named Dave. He was sharing about his career, and I was sharing about my aspirations, what I wanted to do. He's like, "Have you ever thought about marketing?" And I'm like, not really, but I'd love to learn more. So stayed open. He invited me up to headquarters, which is in New York, and I loved it. I loved everything that I saw, and so I kind of was on that path to, what do I need to do to get in the door? So I had my first, so I was preparing, going the charted course in terms of kind of, here's the experiences that you need to transition from sales to marketing. And when I put in the first, so the first opportunity that I decided to interview, the first role that I went after, I got it. And so you see this Viagra pill. It's a brand that is known around the world. Everyone knows the brand Viagra really probably better than they know Pfizer. Because even today, when people ask me, where do you work? I'll say Pfizer. When they start to look at me funny, I'll say, it's the company that makes Viagra. They'll say, oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. So I get this wonderful opportunity to relocate to New York and to come work on the Viagra brand team. And I'm thinking, like, wow, God, like, this is amazing. And so in terms of the timing, in 2014, it was also the year that Joseph and I were getting married. And so we got married. I don't know why I said were. We got married in December 13, 2014. And so I got the offer for the Viagra position probably around like the beginning of November. So beginning of November, I get this amazing offer in 2014 to move from, we were in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to move from Chattanooga to New York. At that time, Joseph was in Nashville. And so he was in Nashville. He had aspirations to go back and get his MBA. He's an architect. He had been working in Nashville at a healthcare firm, doing really, really well there, and wanted to do more. Felt like school was a good path for that. So he wanted to go back to business school. We had talked about, my aspirations and kind of marrying those up, but didn't know that things were going to happen the way that they did. And so I get this offer, and it was a great career opportunity, but it was the wrong timing, and it was just the wrong package. If I could just be totally transparent with you. So I ended up saying no to the offer, saying no to the job, and saying yes to my marriage, quite frankly. Saying yes to, making sure that I was moving at a pace that was optimal, not only for me, but for me and my husband, right? So that's probably another webinar for another time, particularly for those women out there who are single, who may be seriously dating, or, have the aspirations to be married. What does that look like? That's not this talk, but I want to give you a little bit of it so you get the context of why I made the decision that I made. So at the time, that we were deciding about the offer, and I can vividly remember we were sitting on the couch at our home in Chattanooga, and I was ecstatic, like literally. So we had this kind of cocktail hour. I kind of called it a lounge, and I can remember talking to my wedding planner about changing the theme of our lounge to a New York thing. So I'm like, shoot, I'm going to New York. Like, we about to be in New York. We about to be New Yorkers. This is 2014 now. Super, super excited. So I'm like, all on board. Meanwhile, in the midst of that, Joe got a full ride to Emory, the business school, Emory in Atlanta, Georgia. So, I'm looking at a decision. We're looking at a decision. Do I say yes to an amazing career opportunity that is in New York, the city that I've always said I wanted to live, the work that I said I wanted to do, or am I a wife, and do I, support my husband, in my soon-to-be husband, in his career aspirations, and furthering his education, by accepting this amazing, like, who gets a full ride to Emory, but he is brilliant and he got a full ride to Emory, or do I support him in that path and stay put? So I decided to stay put. And so I can remember, just to kind of fast forward through some of the stories so I can get to the strategies. I can remember, so let me just go back to the timeline and give you the context. It was November that I accepted the offer, probably mid-November, excuse me. So I had about 2 weeks to give them an answer. They're, doing this. Like, if you can see me on camera, like, we're going back and forth, trying to, like, make this thing work. And it's like, no, the final answer is no. Okay. So I still work at this company, right? So I had garnered the support of some amazing advocates, some great mentors, some senior level executives within my organization who were all pulling and pushing for me to get this position. And I got it. Woo! Everyone's excited, like, yay, this is really about to accelerate your career. And then I'm like, thanks, but no thanks. The short of it. And so I can remember, and I didn't have the language for it until I was sitting in a small group Bible study, and the instructor at the time was sharing a similar story about career decisions that she made in her new marriage. And she used the term grief. And I had never processed that was what I was experiencing, but probably from 2015, let me turn my ringer off, to 2016-ish, I would say I was grieving. And if you ask my husband, he'd probably definitely say grieving, like ugly grieving. And I say ugly because, there were moments where I felt like I would look at him and be like, thinking in my head, and probably oftentimes sometimes saying, yep, glad you turned your camera off, honey. Probably oftentimes saying, like, you're the reason why, I'm not making this great career move that I should be making, or, you're the reason why I'm having so much grief at work. Because getting back to the advocates, I lost people's trust, right? Because I said, this is what I want. Put me in the position, give me a seat at the table, right? They pull up a chair for me and I'm like, maybe next time. So that didn't go over so well until I began the work. I had on a shirt earlier that said do the work, but I tried to spiff it up for you guys a little bit. But I had to do the work and implement the strategies that I'm going to share with you tonight to truly go back to those people, cultivate those relationships, to get to the amazing marketing offer and role that I'm in right now today. And so I have this slide up that just says pain is a prerequisite to purpose, and to see obstacles as an opportunity, because I truly believe that if I did not have that experience of, one example I can remember, so we have a year beginning meeting every year. So this is 2014. I'd said no, it didn't go. I had all of these like subsequent conversations with people. I probably had about 15 recommendation letters going into this position. So that's at least 15 people that I had to either call on the phone or look in the face and explain, like I'm doing now, but in a much worse state, what went on and why I said no. So we had this year beginning meeting in January every year. And I vividly remember we were in Orlando, Florida. I remember dreading going to that meeting because I knew it was a sales and marketing meeting, and the same people that, 2 months ago, a month ago, I just said, no, thank you to, I was going to have to see face to face, because a lot of those people were in New York and now we were all convening in Florida. And I can remember walking in the room and seeing other marketers like giving the elbow and like whispering like, oh, that's Brittany right there. And I'm like, a process. Let me just say a process. But that process and that experience and what I was able to implement in a whole lot of grace helped me get to where I am today. So I love this quote. This is on my, it's on my signature for work. And it has truly become a part of my brand, part of my personal brand, and what I live by, that every experience is an opportunity for continuous improvement. I don't care if it was the worst experience. I don't care if you are, you were grieving, you're grieving through a really tough decision that you had to make, or a tough situation that was the result of someone else not meeting your expectations, whatever the experience is, it's an opportunity for you to continually improve and grow and develop. And so 11, and I want to tell you about my growth. I want to tell you about the strategies that I implemented. So 11 is the number, and I have my heart's kind of like speeding up right now because I've never broadly shared this the way that I have now. I've always kind of felt like, do I share it? Do I not? But it's my story, which we'll get to. That's one of the strategies. But there were 10 marketing roles between 2015 and 2016 that I applied for. 10. Okay, technically there were 11, but I got the 11th one. But there were 10 opportunities that I posted for. Now I didn't get interviews to all of them, but I got interviews to many of them. And so you can just imagine, the mounting emotions coming with all of that rejection. And I can probably remember, the sixth or seventh interview, like more than a year after the experience. Like I had gone back at the top of my list for the people that I knew I had to right the wrong, if you will, with was the hiring manager, right? So I can remember the hiring manager of the Viagra marketing team at the time telling my biggest advocate, who was my boss's boss, that, Brittany was just wavering. Like, I thought she was more decisive. I thought, like she was really, really, really disappointed, in the decision that I made, but she was at the top of my list. And she today is one of my, if not my biggest advocate at Pfizer. She truly will go to bat, put gloves on. Like it amazes me, but then again, it doesn't, because I know that that's just how God works. And let me pause, because I know that there may be some people on here that don't know me, but I want to just say, working with me sharing with you, and I was talking to a friend about this last night, you get all of me. So I've had conversations with people about, you share a lot about your faith, with your business. And I'm like, yeah, I do. Cause that, that's me. That's who I am. That comes, when you see me, you see my faith. I may not be, walking around with the Bible and a cross, but my faith and what I believe informs a lot, if not all, should be all the decisions that I make, whether they are, decisions about church related ministry or decisions about a P&L at a company. So you get it all. You get it all. It's who I am. It's authentically me. So it will come out. It will flow out. So just don't be offended if you have a different belief. And I'm not on here tonight specifically to convert you if you don't believe what I believe. But I hope that you see the salt and light is the goal. So I wanted to quickly aside just share that. But getting back to the role, to the interviews, and just kind of going back and the number one person on probably the list of like, what the heck is wrong with Brittany? How could she make that decision? Is now one of my biggest advocates. And so I want to give you these strategies just very quickly, 4 quick strategies that I used to bounce back, to go from that situation that I just shared with you that was very challenging, very painful. It caused a lot of stress on my job for years. For years, a lot of stress on my job, a lot of stress even in my marriage. And so I want to share with you what I was able to implement related to my work to really bounce back from that decision. So the first strategy, I'll give you all 4 and then I'll talk through them really quickly. And then I have one more thing to share before we get into Q&A. So the 4 strategies I want to share with you. Number 1, own your narrative. Own it. Strategy number 2, persist through adversity. Strategy number 3 is to cultivate relationships through crucial conversations. And strategy number 4 is to pay attention when adversity reveals priorities. So number 1, owning your narrative. What I mean by this is you have to get to a place where you say, I know my story. I know the decisions that I made and why. Because if you are not cultivating, and if you don't cultivate your personal brand, someone else will. And this is something that I learned through this experience. So I was leaving it to initially my manager. So my immediate manager and even some of my mentors to like share and tell people what happened. So like I was going through these interview process processes where, I wasn't getting the job, and these questions will come up. Oh, well, I heard, didn't you go after a job before? Or didn't you, have an opportunity to come into marketing? Can you tell me a little bit more about what happened? That's how they would kind of frame, let me know about this Viagra situation. But I was initially shying away, and I was letting other people tell the story for me. And every time I heard it back through bits and pieces, it was a different version. I'm like, that's not what happened. That's not why I said no to the job. It had nothing to do with my aspiration for marketing or not wanting to come into this role or not wanting to live in New York. It had nothing to do with any of that. So I say all that to say, you have to, one, cultivate your personal brand. But then when you do have experiences where you are, you're met with adversity, or you have experiences where you're not really getting the results that you want, you have to be the one that says, okay, here's why. You have to be the one that communicates that. So I started in interviews. I started getting comfortable up front addressing what I knew everyone had already heard about, right? Because everyone had heard it from everyone else but the horse's mouth, but mine. And so when I had these opportunities to interview with people, I would start with the tell me about yourself question. I would start with it. I would say, here's what happened, and here's the key. Here's what I learned from this experience. And the way that you share failures is by focusing on the lesson. You focus on and you communicate with people what you learned, so they see, okay, this person has really good emotional intelligence. And although they made a mistake, or although they made a decision that may not have been positive, they were able to see it, they were able to extract the lessons, and they were able to move forward. So that means I need to move forward, right? So I had to help people move forward and stop retelling my story because I started to tell it myself. So own your narrative. Number two, you have to persist through adversity. So anyone that works in corporate America, you know it's tough. Like, it is tough. I don't know another way to say it or put it. Corporate America is tough. Particularly, it's tough when you stand out in every room. So, I was working in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the time, and, the same people like y'all, I had told my team, like, everybody knew I was going to New York, including me. Okay. Like, I had told my team, like, I was helping, them transition my work. Like, I was going until I wasn't going, but I was going. So I had to really persist through people being like, well, I thought you said, and I thought you were going to, and she didn't get it. I wonder why she didn't get it, right? Because there were some people that didn't know all of the back end or didn't get the story, so they were adding their own stuff in the mix. So I say to you, don't shrink. Don't shrink. And the way that I didn't shrink, I started to tell myself, I'm supposed to be here. Right? I started to affirm the word, right? So affirm whatever.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Fill in the gap with that. But I started to affirm things like, greater is he that is in me than he that is in this meeting right now. Right? So I had to truly persist. And whatever that means for you, whatever you use to persist, don't shrink. The second way that you persist, and this really, I really had to get over this, but you have to share your hurdle. You have to share your hurdle. And what I mean by that is you have to be vulnerable, because vulnerability creates connection with other people and shows people that you're real. So one of the things that I have experienced in corporate America, being a Black woman, is that people can sometimes think that you're like a superhero. And it's like, I'm not Wonder Woman. Like, I am a real person with real feelings, and this situation hurt all the way around. And it wasn't until, and I vividly remember this experience, I was doing a mock interview with some senior managers, getting prepped again, going through another interview process. And during the mock interview, at the end of it, when I was getting the feedback, there was someone sitting there that was on a temporary assignment with the Viagra team. And I don't know if that triggered, I don't know what triggered it, but I burst out crying. Y'all. Now, those that know me, like really know me, like, yes, I'm a crier, but I'm not just going to bust out crying in no professional setting, so it was assigned to me that, and what was really assigned to me was how they responded. Like, they were shocked like didn't know how to respond or react. And I quickly like got up, excused myself, and went to the restroom to like get myself together, and came back. And I remember talking to my manager who was in the room after that, and just like sharing with him just what I was going through emotionally with dealing with, I'm trying to get back, but like there are all these obstacles and people aren't giving me another chance because they keep bringing up the decision that I made, a year and a half ago. But that level of vulnerability that I was able to share with people really allowed them to connect with me, and it helped me to persist, right? So that's strategy number 2. The third strategy is to cultivate relationships through crucial conversations. Now, we all get uncomfortable when it comes to having, what in my organization we call straight talk. Like we tend to naturally get uncomfortable. And one of the things that has helped me through to thrive through this particular failure is to get comfortable with conflict, right? Get comfortable from the standpoint of, I know that once I thrive through this, I'm going to come out better, right? I know that I'm going to look for the lesson through this tough moment, experience, or conversation to come out better. And so I started with I started with the hiring manager, and I asked her, I gave it some time, probably gave it a month after like that January meeting, because I saw her there, and it was like, I could tell it was a forced, like, hello, hey, how are you? But so I gave it about a month after that, and I reached back out to her and I said, hey, I would love for you to develop me. I would love for you to help me prepare for the next opportunity, because I want this marketing role, right? And so I had to have those tough conversations. I had to put in the work again. It takes work, it takes time, it takes energy, but it's worth it. Have those uncomfortable conversations. And then the last strategy I want to give you, because I want to share one more thing with you, and then I want to take questions. The last strategy is for you to pay attention, because adversity will reveal priorities. And I left this lesson last because I think it's the most important one. So there were people that I thought were for me, like people that I thought, supported me and were advocates, what have you, that when this thing popped off, like when this happened, when, Brittany Johnson at the time and then turned Cole, which that name change did help. But when when my name was brought up, right, it was brought up next to something negative, and people that I thought would stand up for me in those rooms that I wasn't in, especially, were people that were on board with the negative comments. And I was like, well, wait a minute. But I would have never known that had the situation not happened. And so again, I say to you, when you have failures, disappointments, obstacles, it truly, truly, truly will reveal to you where people stand. You will know. Like, I have no doubt in my mind about where my regional manager at the time stands with me, because he was like probably the main one that was, pulling me. Like, I was deep in some, like, he was helping me, okay? And I knew where he stood, and I knew that even in the rooms that I wasn't in, when he was in a room with other regional managers where I didn't have access, and someone would come back and say, oh, this person said this, or this person had this question. I'm like, how do they have that question? And it's been a year and a half. Why is that question even coming up? He was answering the questions in the room. So I say that to you again to say, you got to know where people stand, and there's nothing that's a more true sign on where people stand than adversity. So those are my 4 strategies that I implemented that really, really helped me to bounce back from what was a really, really just tough time professionally, really tough time personally as well. So what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see. And again, just to kind of review one more time. So 1, you want to own your narrative. 2, you want to persist through adversity. 3, you want to cultivate relationships through crucial conversations, have those tough conversations. And then 4, you want to pay attention when adversity reveals priority. So with that, I want to share with you, if you're interested in learning more, this is the first time that I've shared this, or if you're interested particularly as it relates to working with me, I want to share a way that you can do that. And so I am launching this weekend, but so you all are the first to know. So thank you for registering. And I wanted to keep this closed so that you know that, I appreciate you making a decision. But I'm launching a career coaching program. So it's called Your Career Elevated. And it's really, really meant to help you enhance your influence and increase your opportunities in the workplace. So I want to give you very quickly what the three offerings are. So there are three programs. The first is an Equip program. It's meant to be a masterclass. And so there's 6 topics that we'll go through. We'll talk about in a forum just like this, but it'll be more interactive. We'll have our cameras on. We'll be chatting through 6 core topics to really help you to prepare. And then the second program is Elevate. So this program couples both the masterclass series with a bonus Q&A session, so we can talk through specifically how the topics relate to what you're going through in your career. And then we'll do a personal branding boot camp. And then the last opportunity is my Accelerate program. And this is for the person that says, Brittany, I want everything in the first 2 programs that you mentioned, but I also need help with, editing a resume, or I need help with, my wardrobe, right? So this is like the all-encompassing, I do the work for you. Equip is I give you the tools. Elevate is I give you the tools and I partner with you. But Accelerate is one-on-one, full-time and attention to help you get where you're trying to go. So check the link in my bio after this webinar. I'm going to put the link to register for the courses and to get more information in my bio. I want to share with you the investment. And so this is a coaching program, and it's one that I'm really being strategic about the numbers. And so I have a few ladies that are in the course already. And so I'm launching this soft because I only have a few slots, so I want to make sure I give you as much time as possible. But you see the investment there. And also, sorry, my screen just changed on me. I didn't even know I was going to do that. Okay, but if you're on right now, and so I have the list of those that registered, and you register between now and end of day on the 17th, which is Monday, you'll get $200 off any of the 3 programs, any one of the 3 programs that you decide is best for you. So check my bio. There'll be some more information there, and as soon as my webpage launches that has all of the information, I'll make sure that you all are the first to know. So with that, I want to stop. I want to take questions. We have a few already. Let me, I'm getting this notice about